All right, there's no time like the present. Let's get started, Justin. So I'm with the new CEO of VR Resources. Um, Welcome to the spaces, my friend.
Thanks for having me. I know you've had a busy couple days at Beaver Creek, so I appreciate you making the time here.
Absolutely, my pleasure. My pleasure. New CEO at VRR on the TSX Venture. I met Justin in April in the
Mooning,
Walker Lane Trend. Yeah, at the New Boston project.
that's right.
You were the VPX at the time, but I sensed there could be, an advancement at some point in your future. So here we are today. How does it feel to be a CEO, Justin?
Daunting, intimidating, terrifying, but exciting. I think we've got a lot of fun stuff on the docket here. The first week, obviously, as you've seen, has been quite busy getting news on New Boston out and new projects in Ontario. So, yeah, this has been 2 years in the making, and I'm excited to get going and see what we can do.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, I'm excited. I feel like it's a fresh chapter, new possibilities. So the New Boston project in the Walker Lane Trend, a very well-known area in the U.S., a prolific mining, region. Lots of gold, some copper as well. There's some porphyries there. In that long trend that extends up from Las Vegas all the way to Reno and even into California. So the New Boston project. The reason why I made the trip out there and bought my plane ticket and paid for my hotel room and went all the way up there, spent a day with you guys, is because I love the location.
Hmm.
It's a great location. Like if you find it, it's possible, right? And that's really important in mining. It's not really worth it to find something great in a place you can't build it, you can't get it permitted, right? In that location, you could build it. There's great infrastructure. You're right off a highway, and you're in the number one mining state in the U.S. So that's why I really liked it. I really liked my day out in the field, with you guys. There's a lot of copper oxides at surface. This project has been around a while. Like most projects in that area of the U.S., they have a past. They've been through several operators. This was drilled by, I believe, Bear Creek in the '60s. They drilled a
Hmm.
lot of stuff all across, the U.S. They were really active back in those days, and then it turned into a Molly porphyry, with an oil company taking it over, in the '70s, and then it kind of went dead in the '80s. Fade the scene to today. So you guys drilled two holes. I'm just going to be candid because we might as well be candid.
Hmm.
The grades are pretty low. 0.05% copper over 600 meters in hole one, 0.07% copper over 709 meters in hole two. But for technical minded people who read the news, dig into the graphics, I don't think all is lost here. So why don't you tell us about it?
Sure, yeah, thanks. The Walker Lane is indeed an exciting place to be exploring. It's Nevada. You can build a mine if you find something there. There's no doubt about it. And the metallurgy in the area is quite strong. It was quite interesting while I was down there for 3 months, and that was part of the issue with New Boston is how long it took to actually get those two holes done. I knew of at least four other drill programs, two of them on nearby porphyries as well. But focusing on the New Boston program, I liked what I saw. You visited in April. I think I was maybe 100 or 200 meters into the drill program. We're still in the oxide zone, and as you know, you can't really tell exactly what your grades are going to be on the first couple boxes you see on a drill program, especially the first holes drilled in. Well, I guess there was a couple back 10 years ago, but most of them were 40 something years ago. So I like the veining. The potassic alteration was intense. It was in your face the entire way. The limestone alteration being completely marbleized, seeing garnets and pyroxene. So you're seeing the right type of alteration mineralogy. You're seeing chalcopyrite and molybdenum in every single box down the hole. But alas, we didn't get those screaming grades that everybody had hoped for. And one of the things that we've been thinking about since drilling those holes is where those grades might be, of course. We went in there drilling this conductor. I believe the conductor is, this was from our DCIP survey that we completed last summer. And the conductor, with this new technology, showed us the porphyry intrusion on the east side, but I believe that there's still more to the story there. We sat right on top of that intrusion as it came to surface and drilled right down it in hole 1. And on hole 2, we tried to back up towards visible mineralization to the south and drill down plunge to the north into the system. That was a better hole, more interaction with that porphyry and the limestone it intruded, more veining, more visible copper, and I guess the cherry on top of the last couple boxes, what we actually saw increasing grades with depth, but we had to be cognizant of our budget. It was already an over budget program because of the time it took, the difficult ground to drill. But I believe that there are opportunities here still to test more of the system, both on the east zone side, stepping north from hole 1. Typically in a potassic system, you have a core of low-grade material, and I believe that's what we drilled. And very often what you see is on the fringes of that intrusion, you get your higher grade where that intrusion is interacting with your host rock. So that's what we plan on doing. Those Gaussons that we talked about last spring coming to surface, those plunge on the north flank of that intrusion, and we simply just didn't get a chance to test it. So we'd like to get back and do that.
Yeah, so I'm looking at figure 1 in the news from earlier this week, and I see the drill traces for holes 1 and 2. You're testing the high conductivity target. That was sort of the focus of this drill program. Like that's what you marketed this program on. That's what you raised the capital on. Is we're going to drill this target, this reddish blob. Where we interpret this could be the core of the system. This is where the copper grades could pick up. So can you explain to us what that was actually? Like what was showing up in the IP there? Was it marble? Was it clay? What was going on?
So that high conductivity, it's a high relative conductor. It's still 15 to 20 ohm meters for the geophysicists listening. Relative to the marble, which, as you can imagine, does not pass a current very quickly at all, it is a conductor. And both times the drill holes enter this conductive body in 3D space is exactly where you start seeing the porphyry intrusion. And so that's what I believe it is. Now, as I mentioned before, what happens on the edges of these porphyry intrusions is where some of this conductivity in the system, especially in the algorithms that crunch all the data on this survey, you could have higher conductivity that's a higher grade zone, say with interconnected sulfides, like we do see at surface. There are conductors at surface with interconnected copper sulfides, and that's where you get those screaming grades, such as at GW on top of the hill that we visited. And so I think once you get down to 300-meter depth slice on this figure 1 here, you're actually averaging a lot of stuff together. And there's still a good chance that there's a higher conductivity zone on the north flank here in this sort of yellowish band, just where it says high on figure 1. So that's an upcoming target. I think in this type of system, we call it a porphyry skarn because it's intruding the limestone when the copper stock interacts with the limestone. You have a strong acid base reaction, and that's where most of the metal will dump out, as we see in figure 2, where there's just more copper in the limestone where it interacts with these dikes. So I believe that the same thing is happening. You see it in the field, those deep red ribbons across the hillside right above where the drill was. And I think it's averaging a lot of finer features in with that very large intrusive stock, which is plunging into the center of the system. We see the same textures in the east zone now that we've drilled it as we see in the Jeep mine area 2 kilometers away. So this is one big homogeneous system, multi-phased, 2 or 3 different porphyry phases, and each of them is mineralized. So that right there is a very encouraging fact.
Yeah, that actually makes some sense. You have that, historical hole drilled by Bear Creek. I guess it was the first hole at New Boston.
Yep.
That intercepted 0.14% copper over 100 meters, basically. And you're getting magnetite, garnet, biotite. I mean, all classic porphyry type stuff. And then you look at hole one, which is figure two in the news, the molly is spiking up at the top of hole one and then again towards the bottom of hole one. Molly doesn't travel far. It's a great porphyry indicator.
Hmm.
Molly grades are much stronger in hole one than hole two. So just pure logic, just being just keeping it simple stupid, it would indicate to me that hole one is closer to the core of the system than hole two. Is that right?
I believe it is. And when you go, we don't have a crystal ball when we do this. We spend money on all this state-of-the-art technology, and it's amazing what we can do now compared to the 1960s when Bear Creek, the sort of originators of Kennecott, and what they were doing. So we have a lot better idea of what's going on in the earth. We drilled hole one and hole two into the conductor. That was our target. That was our exploration model. And you learn with each drill hole you complete. So now that hindsight is 2020, of course, what I would do now is I would actually angle that hole more to the north into that sort of yellowy green ribbon there, trending to the northwest, and see if I can hit the same stuff at depth that NB1 did in 1967. Um, that's an easy follow up for us to consider.
Yeah, I mean the grades at the top of hole one are borderline economic. I mean, you got the
Yep.
moly spiking up to 2,000 ppm. Copper grades hit 0.5%. I mean, you just need you need wider intervals, but that's a positive sign.
Yeah, and those are the veins that we see on surface all over the place in the East Zone. I would have loved to see more of them, and actually, I I was quite happy those first couple of weeks because I was seeing those big veins, and I'm thinking, let's see some more of these. Let's see what we can do with this system. And then we ended up just seeing broad, lowish grade mineralization through back. So that whole one drilled back to the southwest, and it didn't actually intersect the CCT zone, which is the lower plate of the system. That's one of the tricks with mineral exploration. You can't do everything at once. You try and drill your best target, and sometimes you just don't have enough money to keep drilling the hole. I would have been there till today if we just kept drilling everything that I wanted to drill in these holes.
Yeah, let's talk. So I guess just two more follow ups, and then I want to move to the Ontario project. So you have a blue trace follow up hole into the high chargeability target on the western side of the property. I mean that seems incredibly logical. You have a classic signature there, and you have that hole by Bear Creek, the fourth hole, which also hits magnetite and garnet and biotite vein, and 0.08% moly. They did an assay for copper because they were just saying this is a moly mine, um, and that was on the fringe of the anomaly. So
Mm-hmm.
that seems like a no-brainer hole, but it's going to be a deep one, right?
Yeah, so that's why I've got the drill set up in this follow up further to the south, where you'd actually be starting in the mineralization at surface. I took you to that outcrop. It's sort of where you pull off the side of the road, and there's a big wall of quartz veins, and they're just loaded with tungsten and moly and little bits of copper all over the place. So that follow-up hole would start in mineralization. The idea again is to drill down trend all the way into the heart of the system where we can see East Zone is headed and where we know now that that Jeep is originating from as well. And I do know actually, now that I've done some more digging over the last couple of months, that some of the holes from Pilot Gold in 2012, there's one actually west of NB4 that's on figure 4, and they did get zero point 0.1 uh, over the same interval that's shown here in NB4, zero point 0.1 coppers. And that's even further west. It's about 150 meters into that central valley that we drove up to get to the top of the hill.
Okay. And to wrap it up, um, on this one, what did you learn from this program? I mean, the drilling was painfully slow at times. You're using a core rig, and some of this ground is pretty busted up. What would you do if you go back again?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of stories out this summer from explorers in the Southwest US having trouble with drilling, and I think the easy solution is to use RC. Um, Much more cost effective, especially for very early stage exploration like this. We went in wanting to learn as much from the core as we could, but now what I've learned is getting results to market sooner is better. And if we can get grade, and if we can get a good RC contractor, then you're going to have more confidence in those RC grades as you get into the system. And if it helps at all, probably trying some deep pre-collars on these very deep holes, using the chips and the grades from the pre-collar of the RC to tell you something about the near surface environment. And then as you get deeper, learning more about the depth of the system when you move a core rig onto it.
All right, final question on the New Boston project. What's next there? I mean, is this going to be on hold because the grades are kind of low, or are you going to try to do another program here soon?
We're definitely going to try. What you need for exploration like this, especially in the US where things are more expensive, is you need the capital backing to do it. And sitting at 3 or 4 cents is not a place we want to be to raise the kind of money we need to continue drilling New Boston. But what we can do in the meantime are an MT survey, magnetotellurics, which we would use the exact same grid array, probably the same contractor, Dias, who are leaders in the industry, and extend this conductivity survey to depth just to see where exactly things are coming from with much greater clarity. What we see now is quite washed out based on the nature of the system that we did use once you get to around 300-400 meters depth. So we want to see what our targets are once you get below that point, because this thing very clearly extends to great depths. It starts at surface on both the Jeep zone and East zone sides. So we want to try and get some geophysics done. We'll see what we can do with these Ontario properties in the meantime to gain some momentum. And hopefully we're back there in 2025.
Okay. And so the news today, from Ontario, you've acquired 3 new projects, copper gold projects in the, northern part of Ontario. Tell us what the logic is here, why you like this area, why you like these projects.
Well, Ontario is great. We've been working there for 6 or 7 years now on our KSZ strategy, starting with Renoke. That was back in 2018. Looking for IOCG systems on big failed rift cracks. The Mid-Continent rift is that failed crack. It's what dominates the nickel copper PGE deposits that you hear about around Lake Superior. And it's that rifting event that caused the big crack heading up towards James Bay, where our projects are, where we found diamonds last year. And there's cracks that extend out to the west through the same greenstone belts that we're exploring in on the KZ. Except over here, we're not a helicopter away into the muskeg where there's no outcrop. We're actually on the side of the Trans-Canada Highway. I put out an Instagram video this morning of me visiting one of those outcrops where the prospector that we vended these properties from, basically sitting in the pandemic, decided to get into prospecting. He was in forestry before that and has had quite a bit of luck just looking in his own backyard, living in Uppsala, finding nickel copper PGE plus gold mineralization on the highway. You've got amazing infrastructure here. You're not too far away from Red Lake. You're not too far away from Delta Resources, which has had some success recently. It's a really good area to be exploring in. And with working with Byron Holvik, our prospector, we hope to partner with him long term here to use the machinery that he has in his yard. He's got a warehouse there to log core in. He's got a drill in his yard. So the idea here is to get some extremely cost-effective exploration done in Ontario in the meantime, we're talking about a fifth to a sixth of the cost of what we're used to spending in Nevada, and maybe even a half the price of what we used to spend on the KSZ on these helicopter-based programs.
Yeah, cost effective. It makes sense. When you're a junior explorer with a market cap sub 10 million, you've gotta be as cost effective as possible. And core drilling at whatever it is, 500-600 a meter is tough. It's definitely tough, and there's a lot of companies in the same boat. The photos from today's news, the Silverback, I guess you drilled some shallow core holes, looks fantastic. I mean, obviously, I'm sure the entire hole doesn't quite, look like that, but that looks very good to me.
Mm-hmm.
What's next at something like the Silverback property?
Yeah, that's probably first on our priority list. Byron drilled these. He drilled 2 holes on what I would call the two worst conductors. He likes to dangle the carrot as much as anybody else. And he was looking for a deal on this. I've been talking to him for the last 2 years, trying to get these projects into VR Resources. He's been shopping them around. So he drilled these in the spring on lesser targets because he wanted to leave the good ones for a junior to come in and explore on. We're going to rush some assays on these now that it's in VR. We're going to assay the entire holes here. There is gold in that drill core that you can see in the photo. And the really exciting thing about Silverback is that there's previously unrecognized quartz feldspar porphyries. So we're not getting too far away from our roots in Nevada with porphyry systems. These are going to be Archean porphyries. They're a little bit different. They're a lot more gold rich. And you look at something like Cote Lake that recently just began pouring gold this year, just south of Timmins. This is a similar type of deposit model where you have large intrusions at depth, quartz feldspar porphyries, and then quartz veining and remobilization of gold coming out of those zones. So next up for us is the same 3D DCIP that we used at New Boston. We expect to see a chargeability response from the disseminated pyrite that has been observed in both drill holes. They're about 1 kilometer apart. We're going to put some more figures up and release news as we get these assays in and IQP the results. And hopefully follow up drilling both at Silverback and another DCIP survey at our Empire district target called Westwood, just on the Trans-Canada Highway. So 2 IP surveys, hopefully some follow-up drilling. And I know that Byron spent about $100 a meter in the spring on this drill program. So I'm excited to get our hands dirty again. I'll go up and log the core with him. We'll get it sampled and off to Thunder Bay. It's pretty simple.
$100 a meter.
I know.
Wow.
If that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what does. I mean, 100 grams gold in a couple meters would be great too. But in the
Yeah.
meantime, it's just about for VR Resources where we're trading at right now. I need to try and create some momentum in the stock, and I feel the best way to do that is by testing some targets in a great jurisdiction, great infrastructure, just like New Boston was, but amazing cost and amazing cost efficiency. So we're excited to hit the ground running here.
And you can get news flow much faster because this is going to be stick rock. You're not going to
Right.
have the same challenges that you had down
Yeah.
south. Let's tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, what's your background in the mining industry? Where are you from? And why did you want to be a CEO of a junior mining company, Justin?
Great question. I'll get to that last. So I grew up in Vancouver, actually Kamloops first and then Vancouver. My dad was an executive at Tech Resources my whole life. So growing up around the dinner table, my poor mom had to listen to him talking about rocks and then us talking about rocks. And I've been immersed in the industry almost my entire life. All of my dad's friends are geologists. I count a lot of junior mining executives as close family friends. And I tried to do something different than what my dad did, and I ended up falling in love with geology when I went to Queens. I got to work around the world, Turkey, Chile, Peru, all over the US and Canada over the following years. And then I did a master's at Laurentian, studying epithermal and porphyry systems in BC. And then I started working with Mike Gunning at VR Resources. I thought that with Mike, I was working with somebody with a lot of integrity, with some great past successes who could teach me exactly how the business works, how to operate in it, how to do things the right way, and hopefully make a discovery. And so now I'm still emailing Mike on a daily basis. He's had an active role in developing these targets. And we both felt it was time for me to step up. And it actually sort of the impetus for the whole thing was our chairman, Darren Wagner, is retiring, doing just a tiny bit of consulting here and there. And he'll be staying on as a strategy and technical advisor as well. So Mike's stepping up into the chairman role. And since I finished my business analytics program at Harvard, I've obviously been interested in how to gain as much value as possible in the junior mining space. I had a background in geology, but as you learn more and more about the mining industry, you just start to see where the money is to be made. I wanted to try and use new technologies wherever possible to make the exploration part of the job, the thing that I've been doing for the last 10 or 15 years now, easier and faster, and learning some business along the way, how to manage companies in this modern day and age.
Yeah, if anybody has a question for Justin, please ask to speak. We got about another 10 minutes left here, and then I got to run back to the conference. But I just want to say a few things. As a VR shareholder who's been beaten up a little bit,
Oh,
I
yeah.
haven't sold. I did sell some, whatever, back in June or something. But I've still got a pretty nice core holding, and I'm hanging on. I haven't bought more recently, but I'm willing to. And I just, the way I see it now and why I held on is honestly because of you. Because I think betting on the jockey is a good thing in the junior mining sector. That's just a people business.
Mm-hmm.
And so at this valuation, it's, to use an overused expression in the junior mining sector, it's dirt cheap, but really it is. It's basically a shell valuation at this point. A lot of shareholders seem to have given up here in the last few months. And so with that, there is opportunity. And there's an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to bet on a new young CEO who's hungry and driven, super sharp guy. You get social media, you get this business, you grew up in this business, and you're committed to this company and solely focused on this company. So that's good enough for me to hold my shares. And that's just, how I see it. But obviously, it's all early stage exploration. Obviously, there's high risk in that. Capital is challenged. It comes at a cost, and sometimes at a very high cost. And those are all weights on the share price, in the near term. But you're right in what you said. Like, you have the chance here to turn the tide, get the share price going a bit higher again, build some momentum. And then, we'll see if, we go back to drill the big porphyry targets at higher costs. But I like the pivot to the lower cost stuff that's closer to surface, where you're not going to have the same challenges with the drills. It makes a lot of sense. And those are really big targets up there, in Ontario. I mean, those are huge structures where you could have millions of ounces of gold there. And I saw the terms of the option deal. It's pretty cheap. I mean, you got this at a pretty good price. You didn't pay up some huge amount with a big cash payment up front. So I like that.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Yeah. No, well, Byron would commiserate with you on that one. It is a cheap deal, but same as you, Byron is not to gloat or anything. He's investing in me as well. We've become friends over the last couple of years, talking about these targets, and they again are big targets. That's the goal of VR Resources from the get-go, was to explore large targets for large copper gold systems. We want to find something that a major mining company wouldn't blink an eye at buying up. So yeah, right now VR Resources is on sale. It's tough to see, having worked here for 8 years now under Mike. Usually we're hovering around the 20 to 30 cent mark. And I just see it as an opportunity. I've been buying in the market, and I want to see a win here. Both Byron and I want to find a mine. We're not after, he's not after, and I'm not after slick deals to try and pad our own pockets. We're in it for the long haul to find something big and put our name on it.
All right. And with that, we will end it there. Thank you, Justin. I appreciate it. talk soon. I'm going back to the conference now. Thanks
Sounds
everybody
good.
for tuning in, and this will be up on my YouTube at Goldfinger Capital in the coming days. Thank you for watching.
Thanks, Robert.
Cheers.